Israel is a settler colonial state.
Sure. Wait, real quick before we go from this point, okay?
Yeah.
I have to put just a quick pin on this, okay? Because I had very low expectations when I saw your Twitter account and everything else. I assumed it's going to be a wild debate. This has been the best conversation I've had on this so far, so I'm super grateful for the conversation so far. Thank you so much. I just want to say one point of agreement I think we can have is I wish there was a better compulsionary body that can force countries somehow, I don't know what that would look like, to make available some evidence of the attacks they do. Because I think we can both agree on this. It might be the case that in every single Israeli attack, they really did have good intel, or they were trying their best, and unfortunately, highly dense populated areas, shit happens. And if I'm being good faith, I would have to acknowledge there could be the case that sometimes Israel, in the post-October 7th fervor, in like the heat of military shit, they don't do a good proportionality cost. I'm like, you know what, fuck it, we might lose 2 soldiers, it's gonna look bad in an election, just fucking bomb this house, you know, maybe we'll take it out, hopefully nobody notices. I think that the photos, the videos of those 3 guys with the white flags getting shot, that should be a wake-up call to people that blindly defend all IDF reporting, because it's like, hey, if they shot 3 guys that were hostages, would we have even heard about this if they were Palestinians? Would we even know? Or is this happening regularly? So I wish there was a way to make that information available on some level of compulsion, which is why I think the ICJ case, from what I understand, is good, because it forces them to file that report with the International Court of Justice to hopefully at least give them some insight to make a determination. I think that would be, I don't know how you do that because of states being unwilling to participate in those things, but yeah.
And Israel being particularly unwilling to do that. They've never let any UN rapporteur in, including the current present one, Francesca Albanese. They've been very, very cagey about letting journalists in, and when they do, they've guided them to very specific areas. And even people who are fairly middle of the road, like Clarissa Ward at CNN, when they see it, they're like, "This is awful," right? When you look at you know, when you look at ICC in the past, you know, they're not party to the Rome Statute. When you look at every effort to participate, Israel has largely said no thanks, right? Yeah. And not just them. Again, the United States is really bad at participating in this stuff too.
I mean, yeah, the U.S. literally, if somebody went to Hague, like we would go to war with them. I think we said that explicitly. You're never holding U.S. soldiers to account under the International Court of Justice. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of us are bad at this stuff. But again, to the point for me is that Israel is not simply engaged in an unforeseeable or unforeseen war.
Israel's but for these kinds of excuses all the time has always been, we feel like the international community is against us or holds us to unfair standards. And I think the things that they point to can argue are toothless condemnation. So they might say, why does Amnesty International spend so much time condemning us? Why is the United Nations passed more resolutions on us than literally every other country combined? Why is it that 63 or whatever Muslim majority countries are always voting in a block to condemn us? This feels unfair. And, you know, maybe Israel complains, maybe they really just are in the wrong, and that's why people are, you know, complaining about them. Or maybe they are kind of in the wrong, and there's people that have potential biases against them, but, you know, that's still something they need to address. I think something that really hurts a lot of the international case as of recently, and maybe we disagree on the facts for some of this, I think a lot of the stuff coming out about the UNRWA relating to, first it was just 12 Hamas people that were participating on October 7th that were part of the UNRWA. Now I think the highest number that I saw was maybe around 10% of them are part of it. And then now I think it was either just today or yesterday, it was there was like a massive military facility right underneath. I think it was a UNRWA headquarters that they're all claiming they didn't know about. And my final point was that very hospital, the Al-Shifa hospital, that there were workers at, doctors saying, no, we've never seen people use this as a terrorist base. We've never seen Hamas people. Well, footage came out later that because those statements were made after October 7th. Well, on October 7th, we saw hostages being taken into that hospital. So I think Israel probably feels a little bit vindicated. Like, well, look, some of these international orgs are trying to fuck us, especially the UNRWA. How do you expect us to trust them?
The UNRWA has been a thorn in Israel's side since 1949. You know, I'll say since 1948, frankly. They've done everything they can to discredit UNRWA. And certainly in the Netanyahu era, discrediting UNRWA has been a primary project of his. And when Trump was in office, he effectively managed to not shut it down, but dismantle it considerably, cutting all the U.S. funding out of it. First, it was 12 people, you're right. And there's no substantiated evidence in any of it. A Hamas-affiliated journalist.
Sure, okay, sure. I do agree, and I even tweeted out on the day that 10% was announced, because the wording on that, I wish I could remember the original outlet. The wording was pretty ambiguous, and obviously Hamas is the government in the area, so when they said 10% have like ties to Hamas, I think that does have to be really carefully evaluated because, like, well, Hamas is the literal fucking government. So what do we mean when we say that?
Right.
Because that number could blow up to a huge amount. That's the same thing as saying, like, oh, this guy was CIA affiliated because, like, his dad was in the CIA, or this guy, you know, works for the feds because he was an informant and he informed one time 20 years ago, right? So I agree with you, and I even tweeted that out on the day of that we have to be careful.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
but you realize that that's also the problem with saying our intelligence says there's Hamas folk in that house or in that refugee camp or in that village. It's those very same standards are being given. That's my point.
Sure, potentially. But I mean, like, for the UNRWA stuff, I'm pretty sure their head dropped out. And I'm pretty sure, like, several, I think even humanitarian groups have condemned UNRWA now. Now, I don't know if they're just rushing prematurely or something, but...
No. He said, we fired the people to give the appearance of propriety. He said, basically, we did the reverse of innocent until proven guilty so we could keep this train going. So there would be no risk of looking like we're not cooperative and like we're not, and like we have something to hide. We fired 12 people, some of whom had no connection to anything, like even remotely. We don't even get it, but we did it anyway. And then the more we looked, the more we realized we had no reason to fire them. They're more frustrated, and yet still, the United States and other countries, it seemed like just an opportunity to discredit the UN and discredit the whole process and say even the body that's making a determination about us is in on the fix. It's one thing to say, look, UNRWA is shitty and for all these reasons. But we're going to keep funding them because it's the lifeblood. But when you say it's connected to October 7th, which is like saying 9/11, you know what I mean? You now have to pull back just for optics' sake. And Israel played this masterfully. They left nations with no choice.
Maybe, I guess. Did you see the story that came out like very recently? I think it was in the past week with the huge data center that was uncovered under the Gaza headquarters. That the ones where all the UNRWA workers were like, we had no idea this was under there, but it was like a massive data center that was used by Hamas. I think this came out just a few days ago.
I did not see that. I need to just give me 1 second. I just need to make one quick phone call.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm new to the streaming life, so.